Alright, so what are the rules to owning a Volkswagen?
There are no rules.
But there are some good ideas and some recommendations, so let's talk about them. It's always a good idea, if you're working on your belt, changing your belt, make sure you have all 9 shims in there. The minimum I think is about 7. If you don't have all 9 in there, pulley's going to crack. When you're climbing a hill, feel like the engine's running a little hot, might be a good idea, slow down. Remember, it's air cooled. Drop it back into third. Go up it nice and slow. Don't let that engine burn up going up a hill. It's always a good idea when you're driving it, going down the highway on a hot day, hit the gas, floor it every once in a while and see if it starts to ping. If it's pinging, it's getting hot, you might want to slow down, let it cool off, pull over, let it cool off. Remember those things. If you got an early car with small taillights, be aware, people behind you, they can't see you at night, especially. They don't see your brake lights either. Especially when these suckers are 6 volt. If you have a 6 volt car, good idea to have a second set of taillights. That's what those are. If you got one of these old Type 2s, and you, especially one of these single cabs or double cab, inside the treasure chest area is really prone to rust. It might be a good idea to make sure you keep that painted or get in there and treat the rust if it starts to happen before it gets too bad. I know patina's cool, but rust is a big problem. Especially if you got a Type 2 like this one, bus. Driving it in the winter, right after a snowstorm, during a snowstorm, when they got salt in the road, probably not a good idea. That's when you drive your other car, which just so happens to be a Volkswagen. Or on a hot day, you can always hop in your Rabbit, turn on your air conditioning, and get some nice cool air conditioning. If you have one of those, it's kind of nice to have a second one. It's always a good idea to go underneath your bus every once in a while. If you got a Type 2, get around, check for any rust, make sure nothing's happening. Hit it with a little rust treatment. We'll show you what that is. You can always jump under there, get yourself some of this stuff, rust converter, have it on Amazon. Grab your little chip brush, go around, stop that rust from taking down your car. If you're driving a patina ride, that's cool. Like those patina rides, but keep an eye on that rust and make sure it's not taking away your car. Eventually, it's going to if you don't keep an eye on it. Always, another thing is if keeping a clean, dry area. One thing that's always important, make sure you drive the car a lot. At least as much as you can safely. Make sure that you're in places where people see you and that you're not going to get run over by someone because of those other reasons we were talking about earlier. Something I do on some of mine is I use a lot of stainless steel. That helps. If you're in a place like Hawaii, Florida, might be a good idea to have a dehumidifier in the garage you keep it in. That'll make it last a little longer. It's nothing worse than driving one of these things and you get caught in a rainstorm. You know, the wipers don't work that great, so make your choices. If it's, you know, if you get caught in a rainstorm, that's one thing, but if you're choosing to drive it in the rain, you might want to choose your other car on that day, because when you can't see out of the windshield properly and somebody stops in front of you, you wipe the thing out, that's going to be a bad day. So another good idea is if you're working on a project, get yourself some project insurance. A lot of people don't know about this. Places like Haggerty have something called project insurance. It's so cheap. Honestly, it's like $100, $200 a year. And if, you know, your shop burnt down or something like that, your house, or you took it somewhere and have work done, burnt down, you're covered. Also, that classic car insurance is really cool. I have that on all mine because, you know, it depends on how much you drive it and stuff like that. But listen, you need to make sure the thing's got adequate insurance coverage, because then you might be able to replace it if something bad happened. You don't want it to, but things do happen. So like for instance, when this thing here was cut to pieces and there was nothing left of it, I had project insurance on it for like 30,000 bucks, and if something happened, at least I wouldn't lose. Enough of the insurance talk. Let's talk about some more fun stuff. Never a bad thing to have a 72 pass oil cooler like that one and an oil filter on your car. Never a bad thing if you have performance engine to have the Type 3 cooling tin versus the stock one. It looks like this. And the reason that you do that, especially when you have a performance exhaust, you're not able to put all of the tin on there. So when you have one of these, it'll meter the air, kind of works more like a Type 3, which is a great cooling system. Again, you'll find bulletins and VW says that it doesn't work, and honestly, there's a reason why they put them on Type 3s. There's an airflow problem in those cars, and having it when you have aftermarket stuff on your engine, never a bad thing. It's always fun when you do a rebuild, put a performance cam in. Sure does make it run a whole lot better. I mean, look at the difference between those two. Stocker, performance. A little different, right? If you can't afford one of these, getting one of these performance cams, you can always go to some of the rebuild shops will actually regrind your stock cam and turn it into a performance cam. They have like angle 110, angle 100 grinds. They'll just regrind it, make it into the new one. Got to check around for that one. That was actually an old school trick we used to do back in the 80s. A very cheap way to get a performance cam. Never a bad idea. Check that oil regularly. Smell it. Make sure it doesn't have any gas in it. Sometimes these fuel pumps like to leak down in the crankcase. And if you keep an eye on it, you're usually fine. But if you ignore it, it could wipe out your engine. And I do like these better than electric pumps. I have more problem with those. Keeping an eye on my oil is pretty easy. So that's why I run these. Never a bad idea to have a Bosch coil. That lasts a little longer than the cheap ones. And keeping it stock is always a good idea. For reliability, that is. But there's nothing like having a 2-liter for climbing hills, some tall gears in your old bus. Never a bad idea. As long as you've done the engineering and mods to it to make sure it's right, usually it's fine. Engines I like to stick with are 74 stroker, 78 stroker with aluminum case, 74 stroker, and this one, 1904, pulls like a banshee. 2-barrel carb for reliability, never a bad idea. So if you want one of these old cars, it's a great thing to have. It's a lot of fun. Make sure you follow the not so much rules, but some of these are a good idea and might help you keep your car from destruction, and also from the rust bunnies, and also from getting rear-ended. Always try and think about from what other people might or might not see when you're driving. Like when you have small taillights, people probably are not going to see that. When you're climbing a hill and you're going 35 miles an hour, they're probably not going to see you. Back in the old days, there was 2 things that people saw when they were climbing hills in the front of the line. It was one of these, Volkswagen bus, or an old diesel truck. They don't know about that today. They're used to seeing stuff go up hills normal speeds. So be aware of that. Being a proactive driver is really a recommendation when you own one of these. Thinking about what other people think, what other people see, what they may not see. Always a good idea when you're driving one of these old classics. You want to keep it around for a while, right? If your flashers work, it's always a good idea. Throw them on when you're climbing a hill. If you have them, at least. And I'll be honest with you guys, seeing out of these mirrors is terrible. So remember, if you have to react when you're driving in one of these old buses, you're not going to be able to change lanes really quickly like you can in your regular car. So just keep that in mind when you're driving it. So when you're in a hurry or you're late for work, might be a good idea to drive your other car. Save the sucker for the happy days. The dry winter days when the roads are clear and dry. So it'll be there when you want to do this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Little VW fun for you. And please like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't pushed the like button, make sure you get that one. Put a comment down, let us know what you think, and any other good ideas for VW owners. Never hurts to have in the comment section. A lot of people learn from those comments, so really appreciate you guys that watch. I really appreciate you guys who subscribe to the channel and your thoughts and your comments and all the things you've done to help the community. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being there.